New tonight, private investigators in Delta County are asking for your help.
Today marks 38 years since a Michigan man was arrested as a suspect for murder. 37 years ago, he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. But he says he was 450 miles away from the crime when it happened.
It would mean a lot to have him come home, to use all of these things, to have all of these gifts here, and to just like begin a life free and, to have my husband home. It would just mean the world to me.
For her entire marriage, Paula Kensu's husband has been in prison. She's hoping to change that. Fred Freeman was born in Lower Michigan, but moved to Delta County after hearing people say great things about the area. His name was later changed to Temujin Kensu to reflect his Eastern religious studies. In 1987, Kensu was sentenced to life in prison without parole, which means he's been in prison since he was 23 and will continue to be there for the rest of his life for a crime he says he didn't commit. A jury found him guilty of killing Scott Macklem in Port Huron on November 5, 1986. An examiner's report shows Macklem died from injuries from a gunshot wound. 9 days after Macklem's death, police arrested Kensu. In court, prosecutor Robert Cleland argued Kensu was a ninja killer. Macklem's fiancee, Crystal Merrill, took the stand, saying she and Kensu briefly dated, and during that time, he threatened to take care of Macklem. Kensu denies saying that, but wouldn't get his chance to tell his side of the story to the jury. David Dean was Kensu's court-appointed attorney. In 1985, Dean was arrested in Ohio on drug-related charges. In March 1986, he was released from his probation for those drug offenses. Kensu's trial was May 1987 and says David Dean's drug addiction impacted his ability to properly do his job.
That's why he didn't call 9/10 of my witnesses. And that's why he didn't use 9/10 of my defense. That's why he wouldn't let me testify.
Also called to testify, Philip Joplin. He was in a cell next to Kensu and told the jury Kensu admitted to killing Macklem. The crime report shows no witnesses were actually present when Macklem was killed, and 9 people testified to being with Kensu in Escanaba and Rock the night before and day of Macklem's death. Moreover, Dean never called Michelle Woodworth, Kensu's girlfriend at the time, to testify. And she says Kensu was with her at home in their bed when Macklem was shot. Kensu says he wanted to take a polygraph test when he was arrested, but he was denied. 9 years later, he passed his polygraph test with a retired MSP officer, according to a report in 1995 from former investigative reporter Bill Proctor.
He looked right at me after kind of making the general statements and said, I'm certain that this man did not do the crime that sent him to prison, and he should not be here. And so those were important words to hear from somebody with that level of credibility. I guarantee you, there was no incentive for him to do so, especially back then.
Temujin Kensu says he wanted to testify in court for himself, his constitutional right, but his attorney Dean denied him. Kensu says he was in Escanaba and Rock the entire time, about 450 miles from where Macklem was killed. Now he tells me he was just down this road here at his home in Maple Ridge Township. He woke up with Michelle Woodworth, who was pregnant at the time, about 9 in the morning. They made breakfast and then got in their car and drove to Escanaba. They drove to Cho's Black Belt Academy, which used to be on Ludington Street. There they saw several students skipping class, and then went to Treasure Chest, Record Rack, and Barron's Real Estate. Kensu says he signed in, and the lady working that day wrote his name on a blotter.
I think it was one of those calendar blotters. And there's a police report that says she obviously remembers me coming in. She wrote down my name at noon and said that I was asking about a rental property, which was in fact a Record Rack, which Barron's was handling at that time. We've never found her.
There's no physical or forensic evidence linking Kensu to the murder. The MSP Crime Lab found one latent print on a gunshell box, but the report shows it does not match Kensu's fingerprints. And Philip Joplin, the inmate who testified against Kensu, recanted his testimony, telling a reporter he made it up to get out of prison early. In 2010, federal judge Denise Page Hood overturned the guilty verdict, citing defense attorney misconduct. But paperwork was not submitted on time, so it reverted back to the original guilty verdict. Now, Kensu and his team are asking for your help. Jim McNeil and Molly Rebels with Delta Force in Gladstone are working pro bono on this case.
He was stereotyped as a wild boyfriend who rides a motorbike and wears a leather jacket and knows karate. And it sure does appear that because of those reasons, he was stereotyped into somebody that might do something like this, and sadly was able to be convicted and is sitting in prison right now. He didn't do this. It's physically impossible, and we have to make it right.
They're asking anyone who would have been in the Escanaba or Rock area on November 5th, 1986, and might remember seeing Kensu, or if you know who would have worked at Barron's Real Estate in 1986, to come forward.
If you see this injustice for what it is, please help us call it out. You know, demand that it be fixed, because it's not just about me. This is way beyond me.
He was a member of our community, and many of them may remember the incident, and many of them may think, well, nobody asked me about it. I seen him here. I remember the incident. I remember that day, but the police never talked to me. And if we can identify witnesses and corroborate Mr. Freeman's statement, and present new evidence which is needed to the Michigan Supreme Court, Mr. Freeman would be a free man.
We know it's a long shot, but we just have to keep trying to find that one piece of evidence that can help bring an innocent man home from a nearly 40-year incarceration that was wrongful.
If you have any information that would help McNeil or Rebels in this case, contact Delta Force in Gladstone. Their contact information is linked with this story on UpperMichiganSource.com or the TV6 and Fox 2P mobile news app. I did call the current St. Clair County prosecuting attorney, Mike Wendling. He did not want to comment, but did send me a press release from 2022. It explains that Kensu and his supporters have tried to appeal his conviction several times, saying Mr. Freeman has challenged his conviction in the 31st Circuit Court, the Michigan Court of Appeals, the Michigan Supreme Court, federal district courts, and the Federal Court of Appeals. And St. Clair County Prosecutor's Office has consistently relied upon the court process to litigate this criminal matter to its conclusion. It is our strongest hope that Scott Macklem's many family and friends can finally have the peace and justice that they so rightfully deserve. The Innocence Project has also featured Temujin's story, and you can find that on our website as well.